Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on our latest edition of Spotlight on Security. I'm Tanya Chin, and I lead corporate communications and investor relations here at Cohesity, and I'll be your host for today's session. We're so glad that you can join us. The Spotlight series is designed to cover a diverse range of topics that have one common denominator: security. And we want today's session to be as interactive as possible, so please engage with us on chat or in Q&A. Today's episode focuses on the state of data security management. Recently, we commissioned our second annual Data Security and Management Survey and are in the process of sharing the insights it provided about organization security and recovery capabilities, as well as their cyber resilience. Unique to the industry, both our 2022 and 2023 surveys sought to equally gauge IT and security operators, and we had about a 50-50 mix between the two groups. Last year, the survey found that organizations felt that they were at a greater risk due to the widespread use of legacy backup and recovery solutions, as well as poor collaboration between IT and security. This year's survey reveals the stark ransomware challenges organizations are facing and the alarming lack of confidence that IT and security operations leaders have in their organization's cyber resilience strategy. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll explore the cyber challenges organizations face, why cyber resilience strategies are not keeping pace with cyber threats, how your organization can better prepare to respond to cyber attacks, and we're going to provide some actionable insights to help you build your cybersecurity strategy. We have a fantastic lineup of experts joining us today. In our first segment, I've invited Ray Komar, Tenable's Vice President of Technology and Cloud Alliances, to join me in discussing insights and callouts from this year's survey. Tenable is a leader in preventative cybersecurity and exposure management and a valued partner in the Cohesity Data Security Alliance. And I'm excited about our conversation about how enterprises can enhance their security posture. Next, our own CEO, Sanjay Poonen, will meet up with Jay Chaudhry, the CEO, chairman, and founder of Zscaler, also a member of the Cohesity Data Security Alliance. They're going to discuss the current threat landscape and the work we're doing to defend against double extortion ransomware, proactive threat detection, as well as proactive threat response. And finally, Tony Draxic, who's the CIO for Shoemaker, will sit down with Dale Zabriskie, or as we call him at Cohesity, Dr. Z, to discuss his cybersecurity strategy that supports over 250 lawyers in 7 locations who are always on the go. So now I'd love to welcome our first guest, Ray Komar, Vice President of Technology and Cloud Alliances at Tenable. Ray, thanks so much for being here today.
Morning, Tanya. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Building a strong security posture and establishing or maintaining cyber resilience is a challenge for any enterprise, and it relies on effective traditional cybersecurity capabilities, modern data security and recovery capabilities, and most importantly, IT and security have to be in sync to ensure that people, process, and technology are aligned. These challenges are becoming increasingly prevalent, as you know, Ray. In recent months, it seems like ransomware has disappeared from the headlines. If you had to guess, what percentage of companies do you think have been hit by a cyber attack?
Well, I kind of cheated, and I've seen the survey results.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm gonna guess. But I think you want to put their guess in the chat before I say anything. So
absolutely, I'd love to see
the
listeners' guess. Anybody have a guess? All right, I'm seeing answers all over the page. So actually, Ray, what do you think?
I was going to guess before I saw the survey results about 25%, given the relatively 6 month window of the survey.
Our survey actually found it was 45% of respondents said that their organization had been a victim of ransomware attacks in the last 6 months. And a whopping 93% said that they felt that the threat had actually worsened in 2023 compared to 2022, which was up 20% year over year. I mean, clearly cyber threats and ransomware are not going away. What are your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree more. I think that's spot on. And I think what's interesting, though, is I just think it's not as newsworthy as it has been in the past. I think it's so commonplace that unless there's some interesting facet to the event, it was a interesting organization or a high volume of data records that were affected, I just don't think we hear about it anymore. And what's even more interesting is most of these ransomware events, at least to me, are not perpetrated by nation state actors with sophisticated targeted attacks using zero-day exploits. These are just basic campaigns that bad actors are running using readily available toolkits and services in some cases, right? That are very akin to what illegal fishing boats do on the ocean. They throw these huge drift nets out in the ocean. It floats along on the currents. They scoop it all back in and sort through for the valuable catch. I honestly believe that's very similar to what the ransomware dynamic is today as well. And so the best way to address that is just to minimize your attack surface in the first place and hopefully make it small enough, in essence, to slip through those drift nets and not get caught. It's definitely something that you have to do every day. It's not a one and done kind of thing. And one of the knock-on effects I think the survey called out as well is that this has really caused a hardening of the cyber insurance market. Ransomware is the number one driver for why underwriting has gotten much more tighter to cyber insurers, why policy limits have decreased and premiums have really increased. So it's a real issue.
Well, we really couldn't agree more about good cyber hygiene. And in fact, in a recent Spotlight on Security episode, Jason Chan, who's the former VP of Information Security at Netflix, he was saying that cyber adversaries don't need sophisticated attacks if your unpatched systems are facing the internet. So his point is, don't get distracted by the bright and shiny things. Really stick to the basics, like updating patches regularly and using multi-factor authentication. And your comments on cyber insurance are spot on. Globally, 74% of respondents said their organization had cyber insurance, but almost half say it's harder to get cyber insurance now than it was 3 years ago. So if you don't have the right capabilities and you're not prepared, it seems that companies are going to have an even harder time because they're facing cost prohibitive premiums, as well as possibly not qualifying for cyber insurance at all.
Yep, that's spot on.
Let's move on to my next question. With all that companies are doing to protect themselves, why do you think ransomware attacks are still getting through? And what are the best practices that you can share with our listeners to protect them?
I think we touched briefly on a couple of them, but I think it really does get back to that fundamentals, that basic blocking and tackling, right? Some of the basic controls that we all talk about, I think most people are aware of, but like you mentioned, multi-factor authentication, train your users, make sure your Active Directory policies are really locked down to the level that they should be. Make sure you know where all your assets are, particularly your external attack surface, right? Make sure you know what those things are. Assess those assets for known vulnerabilities and remediate efficiently and effectively. And then lastly, have a good recovery technology and program, right? Because at some point, there's a good likelihood you're going to need it.
And that's absolutely in alignment with our survey results. Respondents actually, when they were asked how long their organization would take to recover both their data and their business processes, 95% said it would take over 24 hours. 71% said they would need 4 days, and 40% said they need more than a week to recover. So it's really not surprising that over 2/3 of our survey respondents really lack the confidence that they could recover both their data and their critical business processes in the event of a system-wide attack.
That makes good sense.
Yeah. We also heard from respondents that the 3 biggest barriers to their organization being able to get back up and running in the event of a cyber attack were integration between IT and their security systems, the lack of coordination between IT and security, and the use of antiquated backup and recovery systems.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the Rift. It's been probably one of the dynamics that have bothered me the most in my career, which has gone on for longer, that I want to tell everybody on this webinar. But I came up with this way of looking at the problem. I break it into 2 components. There's a carbon-based part of the problem, and there's a silicon-based part of the problem. The carbon-based part of the problem is simply just people. You've got different folks in different organizations with different charters, different drivers, different SLAs in some cases that aren't always aligned. And so there's just a lack of people coordination. And let's be honest, there's personalities involved as well, right? And then the silicon-based part of the problem is just ensuring that the toolkits that each party uses, each functional area uses, can talk together and they can share the data appropriately and hopefully see the problem through a common lens.
And that makes perfect sense. let's move on to my last question. In your opinion, what should IT and security organizations look for as they evaluate cybersecurity solutions?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, beyond the obvious of price and level of support that meets the organization's needs, I would look for a vendor that truly meets the specific requirements of your organization. I think we all know that in cybersecurity in particular, it's a very fragmented landscape. And I think each organization has its own cultural and technological nuance. I think finding a solution that works well for you is probably number one. I think number two, look for a vendor. This is going to sound kind of silly, that understands its place and role in that cybersecurity landscape. We can't solve your entire cybersecurity problem. I don't think there's any one vendor that can. So having a vendor that recognizes that they can't and what their place is, I think is very important. And then last, I think look for those solutions that are built with integrations in mind. To my earlier point about the silicon-based part of the problem, ensuring that data can effectively integrate to other systems, I think is really key, because that's how it'll transit across functional boundaries. That's how it'll transit across technological boundaries. So I think that to me is a very important facet to look for. And I like we've all talked about, it takes a village to secure an organization, and vendors need to realize that our customer's job isn't to run our tool. Our customer's job is to secure their organization.
And that's exactly what we heard from respondents as well, right? 87% said to win the war against ransomware, it's really important for data security vendors and cybersecurity vendors to collaborate. And we couldn't agree more here at Cohesity. In fact, that integration between your modern data security management solution and your cybersecurity solution is an absolute must in order to provide data visibility and data protection, and give you a holistic view of your threat landscape. And we also believe, and the survey results absolutely proved, that organizations in the industry really need to be more collaborative and proactive about coming together to improve our ability to respond to cyber attacks. That's why we founded the Cohesity Data Security Alliance, because as our CEO says, it takes a village. And it really goes without saying that we really value Tenable as a key member of the Alliance. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to participate. It's important. We want to make sure that holistically we work together to support folks who have a very difficult job in protecting their organization out there.
This has been so insightful. Ray, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Thanks, Tanya. I appreciate it.
I really enjoyed that discussion with Ray. There are several key takeaways from the conversation. A few that come to mind for me are, first, don't set your organization up for failure by not doing the basics to secure your organization's data and the access to it. Second, without effective modern data recovery capabilities, organizations can't have the confidence in their cyber resilience strategy or respond to growing cyber threats. And finally, collaboration and integration are absolutely crucial. Organizations need to evaluate their cyber resilience strategy with the objective of making their data security and management platforms integrate with their existing cybersecurity solutions, which will bring IT and security closer together and strengthen your security posture. And now for our next segment, our CEO, Sanjay Poonen, recently caught up with Zscaler's CEO, Jay Chaudhry, to discuss the current threat landscape and the 3 use cases we're collaborating on to help defend against ransomware attacks. Let's watch the interview.
Hello, everyone. It's my joy and pleasure today to be talking to my good friend, Jay Chaudhry. So I could probably affectionately call this the Jay and Sanjay show. I've known Jay for many years, and I found him to be super smart. Obviously knows a ton about security, which you'll see during the course of this discussion. But just a very approachable, humble person. And that's what I value the most in leaders. So Jay, welcome to our Spotlight on Security. And it's a delight to talk to you today.
Sanjay, thank you for your kind word. It has been wonderful to partner with you in the past, and I look forward to the next level of partnership at Cohesity.
I think it's going to be great. Well, listen, I want to get right to security because you're one of those thought leaders in security. And, when we look at kind of what we see from our research today, which we do with a number of our IT and security leaders and with some of our partners, even today, 92% of the people we've surveyed among the thousands are still worried about ransomware. And ironically, 72% don't believe that they can recover within 4 days. So this sort of threat, nation state actors often, ransomware is just one of many attacks. are relevant. And we've got one piece of it. You've got another piece which we will talk about in a second. But what are you seeing in the threat landscape, and why is security right now not just a CIO topic, but a boardroom discussion topic?
So, Sanjay, first of all, when you become digital economy where everything that's precious is sitting online, the bad guys want to steal either your IP, your customer database, or your money. It's fairly straightforward. In the old world, you had to secure your buildings, right, with security guards and everything. Now you need to secure your digital assets. The challenge is the bad guys are moving faster than the security technologies. And that's why more and more companies are getting uncomfortable with cyber issues, including ransomware.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And you folks have carved out an incredible, corner of the market. Security is a broad platform that broadly, I would say, started off with secure web gateways, proxies, but now I think people would call that cloud security, secure access services, work from home. And especially in the last 3 years with COVID, people have really kind of flocked to your platform a lot more in the enterprise. Give us a little bit of kind of the state of Zscaler. What's made you most successful? You're over $1 billion in revenue, doing very well in the market. What's been differentiated in the platform, and what does Zscaler offer that is so unique?
So when I wanted to start Zscaler, this was 2007, 2008. I wanted to reimagine security, reimagine network. I knew that network security was failing. So I said, let's not do network security. Let's not build the next gen firewall or a firewall in the cloud. We built a switchboard. The switchboard said, I'm the policy engine, and I'll connect the right party to right party based on policy, based on identifying who you are. That's really what became known as Zero Trust. That's what we pioneered. That's why over 40% of Fortune 500 companies depend upon us. They trust us. But there's a lot of inertia in the market out there. Companies that are holding on to the same old security technologies, they are having these issues.
Every time I hear Jay talk about his vision, there's something new I take away from it. I'll never forget, in one of his CNBC interviews, I think with Jim Cramer or somebody else, he used the analogy of much of the state of the market was like running DVDs in a cloud. That's now not Netflix streams. You gave that example of DVDs in the cloud versus Netflix streaming. I think it's a very good analogy, and the sort of the beauty of a new architecture. And would it be fair to say that, listen, for work from home and work from anywhere, that's been a boon to this architecture, right?
Yeah. When you use Zscaler type of zero trust architecture, it doesn't matter where you work from. You are all untrusted. That's the part of zero trust. We verify who you are. We check the policy. We connect. So enabling work from anywhere is important, but equally important is the new world, the cloud, where your applications are no longer sitting in your data center.
Yeah.
They may be in your data center, but they are SaaS applications with 50 SaaS application providers. And your applications may be sitting in Azure, AWS, and wherever. So it doesn't matter. That's what Zscaler enables.
And I often think about the kind of the integration and the marriage of our two technologies a little bit like a barbell. On one side, all of cloud security, secure service edge, you've got best of breed capability Zscaler. On the other side, data security, data management, everything related to backup, you've got Cohesity, best of breed. And in the middle are ways in which we connect this, where we're dealing with data at rest and you're dealing with data in motion. And there's sort of three use cases that we are working on. So number one is to protect against double extortion ransomware, where we see something, being able to get it to you quickly and detect between each other so that a double extortion, that's a very common use case and a well understood use case in the industry. The second is a proactive threat detection and a proactive threat response. So in other words, if we see something anomalous, potentially a large amount of files that are sitting in our backup data and so on and so forth, and if we can pass it to you, or you can pass a warning closely to us, and then certainly in the sandbox, if you can detonate it, you're providing the company better security. So those are the 2 or 3 use cases. Our job is to do data protection and ransomware protection and scanning and classification of data and cyber vaulting really, really well. Your job is to make sure that if we pass you something, you can alert us quickly. That's what we are trying to do as Mark. And now, of course, we've got to go do the work between that 2 ends of a barbell.
Yeah. So We have been doing cybersecurity for the last 14, 15 years. There are multiple technologies. One, with 300 billion transactions a day that we process and handle. With the network effect, we know by and large which destinations are bad, which files are bad. We already got their fingerprints. That's one. Second, it may be what we call zero-day attacks. There's a brand new file that has come that may be infected. Nobody knows it's good or bad. So as you pass the file to us, we detonate it in our sandbox. It's like simulating as if it's going to run in Windows or your endpoint, and we see what's going on, and we can find that this is bad, and we can give the verdict back to you.
Great.
So you know that this file is being backed up is already actually a bad file. So working together with API-based approach is a good thing. No security vendor can do it all. I like to say there won't be a God security vendor out there.
Yeah.
You need to find the best vendors who work well together, API integration, and deliver better value to our customers. And that's what we like to do.
Those are the three use cases you're going to see from Cohesity and Zscaler: a proactive approach to protecting against double extortion ransomware, a proactive approach to threat detection and threat response with the power of us on one side and Zscaler on the other side. I think it's going to be great for customers.
Indeed.
But let's talk a little bit about AI. Okay, obviously, the more data we have for us, because we sit on a lot of data, we've now got some incredible use cases of generative AI to be able to not just detect anomalies, but we've cracked a use case for search of large amounts of data with Google and Microsoft. That's phenomenal. We filed a few patents. We're 3 or 4 years ahead of everybody in the industry. But AI also applies to your world, because the more you're seeing threat and signals, the more you can apply AI. How are you applying AI? Because everyone in the world is talking about AI today.
You know, in the high-tech world, every vendor likes to claim things. But if you think about AI ML, you need to have data scientists and domain expertise, which we do, and others can get it too. Two, you need large language model. And good thing is these large language models are becoming open source and will be more widely accessible. Number three is data. The benefit of generative AI depends upon how good your data is, the volume of data, the quality of data. While there's a lot of public data out there that ChatGPT of the world use, for security, we got the best logs out there. 300 billion transactions a day create 300 billion log entries. And our logs are not like firewalls, like short logs. They're not like DNS. They are full logs. And with a URL that may have 1,000 bytes of unstructured data. As we feed these logs to the large language model, we can actually predict based on the behavior patterns if this customer is likely to get breached or not. So being able to predict breaches is the most exciting part of AI ML. I think we have a big opportunity to help our customers in this area.
I had not thought about that, but given the fact that you see so many of these logs, you are privy to a large amount of data that you can run your AI. In a similar fashion, again, coming to that sort of picture of what you do on your side and what we do on this side of that barbell, we're sitting on exabytes of data that we manage for customers. And from that, we detect anomalies and obviously are very, very focused on protecting that data with customers. So this is fabulous. Right now, I'd like to step back and Jay, and sort of kind of chip another last one in. When you're pitching to CISOs now, today, what are the key messages and key, attributes that you find them interested in? And what are you driving to, show yourself to be differentiated relative to other alternatives they might be looking at?
So CISOs, CIOs, and boards are all worried about cyber. Okay. And I think the biggest thing that's holding them back is inertia. They've been doing security, the network, the same way for 30 years.
Yeah.
Incremental changes. Change is hard. Change is discomforting. Good CISOs, good leaders are willing to make changes, willing to disrupt stuff and adopt new technologies. Too many CISOs have been kind of given information by legacy companies that zero trust can be built on firewalls and VPNs. Not true. You can convert an internal combustion engine car into electric car, maybe a little bit hybrid here and there, but eventually you want a real electric car. That's disruptive technology. Hackers don't have inertia. Large companies have inertia. They're slow. If you ask yourself, if you're spending a big part of your budget on firewalls and VPNs, either as boxes or in the cloud labeled as VMs, you aren't going to be successful because hackers are moving on fast. Zero trust architecture is fundamental and foundational to it. And further, you need to really work with the team to change the mindset and the culture. So get ahead. That's really the biggest thing our successful customers have done.
That's great, Jay. Very good. And I think for many of us who are, we're at the junction of infrastructure and security, these are very good words. And I hear this also in the boards I'm involved. So thank you so much for your time today. This is incredibly a privilege for not just myself, the thousands of viewers.
Sanjay, I appreciate the friendship and the partnership.
That was a great conversation with so many great takeaways. One, the willingness to make a change. Two, the importance of implementing a true zero trust policy. And of course, I look forward to the work Cohesity will do with Zscaler on double extortion ransomware, proactive threat detection, and proactive threat response. For our final segment, we wanted to share with you the perspective of one of your peers on their approach to data security and management. And that's why I'm thrilled to introduce our next speakers. Our field CISO, Dr. Z, who works with organizations to help build their cyber resilience and recovery strategies. We'll moderate this next segment with Tony Draxic, the CIO from Shoemaker, a full-service law firm. Please welcome Tony and Dr. Z to the program.
Thank you, Tonya. And thank you for joining us. I'm Dale Zabriskie, Dr. Z, field CISO here at Cohesity. And I'm pleased to be joined by Tony Draxic, who's the CIO of Shoemaker. Tony, thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Z.
Tell us a little bit about you and your role at Shoemaker.
Oh, yes. So as Dr. Z stated, I'm the CIO over here at Shoemaker, Loop and Kendrick. We are a law firm located based in Toledo, Ohio. We have locations throughout the U.S., in Ohio, the Carolinas, down in Florida. I've been with the firm for 2 years now as their CIO, and let's say everything that encompasses from network, help desk, security, e-discovery, all that fun stuff. So
you've got it all.
Yes, the fun never ends.
That's good. And you have a long experience working in law firms, don't you?
Correct. Prior to Shoemaker, I was the CIO of another AmLaw 200 firm for almost 10 years.
So let's talk a little bit about your experience, especially in something like a law firm. You've got, you've got proprietary stuff you need to worry about. You've got confidentiality is so serious, but then you also have the need to support many individuals in doing their job. If they can't access the systems and the data, the applications, it's business is not going to happen. So tell us a little bit about the challenges that you face in supporting an organization like that.
Oh, yes. So, yes, as in a law firm, let's say it's a 24/7 business. Our attorneys are constantly working. Our clients, they're demanding that we're available, all the time, anywhere. And obviously that means we need to be secure, regardless if if our folks are working in the office, at home, on a beach, in the airport, on a plane, wherever that is, they need to be secure. But like I said, it's 24/7. As you stated, obviously, security, we have, our guidelines and all that, but we also have outside client guidelines. So it's not just, a subset of clients, it's for everybody, so it's always changing. The requirements are never ending, and we always need to stay on top of our game, regardless if it's healthcare, financial institutions, whatever that may be. We need to make sure that we're secure from, anywhere and everywhere.
So technology, running the business is so critical. What have you learned about the best way for breaking down the barriers that seem to exist between the business and technology? The business just says, make this happen, do this thing, and don't get in my way. You have to break down those barriers for your department, what you're responsible for, to be seen as an asset and not a barrier or not just a thing that's in the way. So what have you seen and to be the most effective in working that relationship?
To me, it comes down to, I don't want to say 3 simple pillars, but let's say 3 pillars, the teamwork, collaboration, and communication. So let's say like my job as a CIO is really communicating, working with, our senior leadership, and communicating the why. Why are we doing something? Why are we doing 15 character passwords? Why are we putting, MFA on something, all that stuff. We're not doing it to make, people's lives harder. We're doing it to secure the firm. So it's really communicating and working with the leadership on the why. So our attorneys understand, hey, we're doing this to meet, these client guidelines to keep the firm's name out of the paper. So it's really working as a team, but educating our end users on the why. Not that, it's just another IT and IT decided to do it, but really understanding the business reasons behind that.
Yeah, I mean, helping to make them part of the solution, part of the process, right?
Yes, where let's say, business is driving and technology is just helping on the back end.
And it's so important when your organization users own things, right? You've talked a lot about the importance of being ready. Keeping the revenue generating clock running, and something's going to get in the way of that. And so, in responding to issues and problems, whether it's maybe it's ransomware, maybe it's a misconfiguration, something's going to bring a system down. What work do you do to be ready to respond appropriately?
So it goes back to, let's say, the three things I just mentioned. At the firm, we have an emergency response team that, comprises the various units of the business, not just IT. So if something does happen, all the proper stakeholders are involved. If something does happen to our financial systems, what are the critical features and functions that we need to get up and running first? RPOs, RTOs, IT could, we could come up with what we think, but it's really having the business involved and identifying who's on that team. So if something happens, it's like, everybody, it's all hands on deck and everybody knows, let's say, their roles and responsibilities. And in addition to that, it's, the communication plans, doing tabletop exercises and just preparing, for those for those situations. So.
Yeah, I think that, my experience has been that when things go south and it's time to fix them, one of the greatest challenges the organizations have, and they're surprised when they look back and they realize what they've gone through, they're surprised that the first thing is not the technology, it's the communication within the organization. Yeah. So what have you learned through those tabletops and those processes that has made, because you put out your share of fires, that's made the communication work more smoothly?
Yes, I think the first thing is, those tabletops, they're eye-opening experiences. It's like, oh, wow, you think you have everything covered, but there are always gaps. And to me, it's always a continuous improvement. And you can always get better. What worked for us last year, we realized that if we don't evolve and change, it's probably not going to work this year, but we just got to keep getting better. So that's one thing. Every time we do a tabletop, we learn something new. We did have an incident with weather down in our Florida offices, let's say, during hurricane season. And it's not only responding, but after we do a postmortem, lessons learned, what could we do better? And, everybody realizes there's always continuous improvement and always revamping. You can't just kind of sit on your laurels and be like, oh, we're going to be okay. But it's continuously reviewing and all that fun stuff.
So what are the best ways to communicate your needs to the business side, to your CFO, for example? If you're going in there saying, we need to do these things and it's going to cost X and Y and Z, et cetera. What are the best ways for someone in your role that you've learned to get what you are looking for from a financial perspective? What helps that conversation with your business owners?
Let's say it goes back to, the first thing we talked about and explaining the why, the business need. Say, hey, if our time entry system is down for 4 hours, what is that going to cost the firm? So really having that, putting those financial numbers to that and sitting with the business owners, where once again, it's not just IT, where it's sitting with the CFO, the COO, and the proper stakeholders to understand that. And we come up with that together. So it's not just IT driven.
I think that's a real excellent point, because too often, and we kind of mentioned this, the IT is over here and the business is over here, or security's here and IT is there. it really is all about showing. I like the way you use the term, the why. Why are things important to the person that you're speaking to? So drill down just a little bit more for me on the traditional data management and data security relationship. You're in an overarching position there, but too often in my consulting, I see that those two groups are kind of at odds about, security is going to write a policy and throw it over the fence and give it to the other team. And they're like, well, what do I do with this? How do you help break down those barriers to get everybody on the same page and working together?
I think, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest headaches I have, because when you talk about, let's say, the data management, the data governance, it makes people's lives harder. Classifying data, where do I save the data? How do I handle the data? So once again, it goes back. I hate keeping going back to the why, but it's also training. And that's another component of it. We have our data officer, the CIO, but also our training team. Explaining to people why they need to do this. And it's tough, because it's not, to me, it goes back to every time, security. I feel like people think that security just means, oh, you're making my job harder. But once again, it goes back to educating, so my thing is trying to get everybody at the table so we all understand. Then obviously communicating to the end user and doing the proper training.
So yeah, the security team cannot be seen as the department of no, right? Can't do that. Put your hands on your hip and step away from the laptop. Is the way the security seems to be perceived quite often. So those are so critical in the relationship because when you have let's just say a ransomware attack, it's not just the team that has to restore a backup, right? All these things have to work in concert together. Where does that planning then, do you feel, have the best impact? And maybe you've got an experience that you've had where the work that you've done before has shown in a recovery situation that this has been so beneficial to us.
We could rewind, let's say when Hurricane Ian hit in September of 2022, down in our, in the Tampa, Sarasota area, we had to close offices. And, let's say we put our ERT system, let's say we put them to, we put ourselves to the test. Everybody got on, our calls, our communication plans, the IT guys, shut down locations, failed over. And we put it to the test and it worked, because we were prepared. So
there you go. I mean, that, the whole thing, we've all lived through the hurricanes and the storms and the things that shut down. And you're just showing that it's worth the time, it's worth the investment to do these things. So, what I hear, just, the takeaways from our conversation here today is planning is so critical. And being ready, having the right tools and having the right reasons for them. It's all about communication. It's all about really helping everyone to understand why things are being done, not just the fact that they have to be done. And then training, right? Is that everybody's ready. And when those three things come together, you can talk people, process, technology, you can talk, your three pillars, but when all those things come together, that's when life can move forward and you have the confidence to be successful in keeping those doors open and going forward. Tony, thank you so much for your time. This has been so enlightening, and we wish you the best, that you won't have to recover anymore ever in your life. We hope that happens, but that when it does, you're going to be ready. So we appreciate our audience from joining us today. Thank you for your time. And Tanya, back to you.
What a great discussion. Thanks to both of you. And most importantly, thanks for everybody joining us today on this episode of Spotlight on Security. Your participation and input make all the difference. There is a survey coming your way, so please tell us your thoughts about the program and what topics you'd like to hear on a future episode. Thanks in advance for your input and your opinions. And please keep an eye out for our next Spotlight on Security episode. And thanks again for joining us. Until next time.